know, as I think about outcomes and I put that in relationship to either my own life and or for clients' life, it's easy very quickly to think about great stories. I have a client that I currently work with that, again, interestingly enough, really reached out to me because they'd heard about the Griffin Hill System and they'd heard about what I had done, and I actually had no idea who this individual was when they reached out to me. So my phone rings one day and I answer it, and it's this guy. His name is Bryson Duncan, and he does this great little nutraceutical company where they do a pre-workout. And he calls me up and he's like, "Hey Daren, I've heard a lot about you and I believe that you can help me increase my sales." So as I went in and I kind of started, talking a little bit about, who we are and what we do and getting to know a little bit more about his company, had found this great little entrepreneur who had started this company, and he had literally put his tears, sweat, blood, everything you can imagine in this organization. And they were doing about $300,000 in sales, and they'd plateaued at that number, and they'd been at that number for some period of time, and really just struggled to break out and get to the next level. So when I got the call, he's like, "I need you to come and help drive sales at my organization." So we engaged. First month, their sales came in after I started working there, $300,000. Okay, great. We haven't done any damage. Month 2, sales are at $300,000. Okay, good. Haven't done any damage. Month 3, Bryson calls me and he's like, "Daren, I asked you to come in and help us with sales." And I said, "We're on the right track." I was able to pinpoint a couple of key metrics and a couple of key things that gave me a high level of confidence we were going to be able to duplicate the successes I'd seen in other organizations. Early stage metrics, as we were focusing on numbers and early stage behaviors, we started to see those behaviors entrench. Month 4, we started to see an increase. We went from about $300,000 to about $380,000. Month 4, we eclipsed 400 for the first time in the organization. Month 5, we were doing really well in that $400,000 range. Now all of a sudden we're at 400. We've really been able to get this organization to the point where they can consistently come in and produce about $750,000 on a monthly basis. And it has absolutely transformed this organization. I was in Bryson's car one day and he needed to stop at the bank. We pull in and he goes in and makes a deposit. And the teller behind the bank looked at Bryson and said, "Looks like business is really good." She said, "Man, you're doing really good." And it's just fun to be able to see those kinds of impacts that, as a coach of the Griffin Hill System, that you can have on individuals and organizations. Another client of mine, Vivint. I've had an opportunity to work with Vivint in a couple of different capacities. Vivint is a great home security, smart home security type company. They were purchased about 2 years ago for $2.2 billion. This is a big business, big organization. Had an opportunity to work with them in the sales, and I've also had the opportunity to work with them in some customer service arenas. When I was working in the sales side of the business, I had somebody approach me from the customer loyalty team. This is the customer retention team, and he said, "Hey, I know you've done some really good things in sales. I think you can have an impact here." And I said, "Well, what are we looking at? Tell me a little bit about what's your save rate right now?" The save rate, when I started talking to the Vivint customer loyalty team, was at 8%. It didn't seem very good to me. And I asked him a question. I said, "What kind of impact would it have if we could get you to 15%? Just almost a 100% increase, just a little bit under 100% increase of where they were currently performing." And he looked at me and he literally said, "It would be life-changing. If we could get to 15%, that would change everything." By the end of that year, we were trending well over 20%. That first year of coaching, we went from an 8% save rate to a 20% save rate. Inbound calls, "I'm done, I want to cancel." They were saving 8 out of every 100 of those calls. A year later, they'd gone from 8 to over 25%. As we continued to work with this organization over the next preceding years, they are currently trending at a 68, nearly 70% retention rate by following and adhering to the Griffin Hill System. And it's changed everything. Great success story. The last story that I have to tell as it relates to an impact actually is a very personal story. As I mentioned earlier, love to be outdoors and love to spend time with my family. And so we had an opportunity to go enjoy the great Utah snow one day, and we were up at the world-class resort of Alta. And as we were riding the lift up, I had a flashback to my previous Griffin Hill coaching days and the way I interacted with my family. It was probably 5 years before this time, before I was a Griffin Hill consultant. And we were up skiing, and we were on this, pretty easy, relatively easy drop-off, but it had a little steep drop-off. So I kind of skied off, made a couple of turns, and my two oldest daughters at the time, the nerves set in, and they were super nervous, and they could just see themselves tumbling down the hill. And I, with every bit of ounce of encouragement and everything that I tried to get them to come, it didn't work. So I got angry, and I was really kind of upset. So here we are up on the mountain, and I'm yelling at them, I'm like, come on, you got to make this happen, and just really got frustrated with them. And I had that flashback just a couple of years ago as I was now back in a chairlift with some of my oldest daughters. And I remembered that scenario, and I asked them, I said, do you guys remember that day? And I didn't even have to get the whole story out there, like, oh yeah, we remember. Yeah, we remember. And it was a statement from my oldest daughter that had really made the profound impact at the time. She looked at me and she said, man, Griffin Hill's been the best thing that's ever happened in our life. You're so much better of a dad now than you were then. And it really has impacted the way that I communicate, even on a personal level, inside of my family and inside of my personal network. And it has enhanced and enriched our lives in a personal environment and a family environment the same way it's had that impact with my clients. Being able to provide them a sense of job security and a sense of revenue and a sense of confidence that they can get the job done.